Hi students, this is Anusha from DBS Institute of Technology, Kavali. In this video, I am going to explain allowable bearing pressure in shallow foundations. So the topics covered in this video are settlement of foundation, allowable settlement, and finally plate load test. Settlement of foundation. The foundation settlement under the loads can be classified into three types. Those are immediate or elastic settlement, consolidation settlement, secondary consolidation settlement. So immediate settlement is also known as elastic settlement. So immediate or elastic settlement takes place during or immediately after the construction of the structure. It is also known as distortion settlement as it is due to the distortions, that is, not to the volume change within the foundation of the soil. The settlement is not truly elastic and it is computed using elastic theory, especially for cohesive soils. Second one, consolidation settlement. This component of settlement occurs due to the gradual expulsion of water from the voids of the soil. This component is determined by the using of de Droguet's theory of consolidation. And the third one is secondary consolidation settlement. This component of the settlement is due to the secondary consolidation. This settlement occurs after the completion of the primary consolidation. It can be determined from the coefficient of secondary consolidation. The secondary consolidation is not that significant for inorganic clays and silty soils. And the total settlement is given by the summation of immediate elastic settlement plus consolidation settlement plus secondary consolidation settlement. And the second topic is under settlement of foundation is loads for settlement analysis. Dead loads include the weight of the columns, walls, footings, foundations, and the overlying fill, but not to include the weight of the displaced soil. The live loads, which are depend upon the using of structure. These live loads can be taken from the codal provisions, which are from IS 875. Wind loads and seismic loads should be considered wherever the applicable. However, the wind or seismic load is less than 25% of the combined dead and live loads, and it may be neglected in design and only dead load and live loads are considered. When wind load or seismic load is more than 25% of the combined dead and live load, the foundation is designed such that the pressure due to the combination of the dead load and live load and wind load, that is nothing but seismic loads, does not exceed the allowable bearing capacity by more than 25%. For the foundations which are resisting on the coarse grained soils, the settlement should be estimated by corresponding to the full dead load, live load, and wind load also. Wind load is nothing but seismic load. In such soils, settlements occur in a short period of time. And for the foundations on fine grained soils, the settlements are estimated corresponding to permanent loads. All dead loads and the loads due to fixed equipment are taken as a permanent one. So in this type, the loads coming from the superstructure which are resisting on the coarse grained soils, and the loads which are coming from the superstructure which are resisting on the fine grained soils are calculated. And the third one is settlements due to other causes. In addition to settlement under the loads, the settlement may also occur due to the number of other causes. The first one is underground erosion. Underground erosion may cause formation of the cavities in the subsoil, which when collapse cause settlement. Second one, structural collapse of soil. The structural collapse of some soils such as saline, non-cohesive soils, which are gypsum, silts and clays and loess, may occur due to the dissolution of the materials responsible for the intergranular bond of the grains. Next one, thermal changes. Thermal change is nothing but a temperature change. Temperature change can cause shrinkage in expansive soils due to the settlement occurs. Next one, frost heave. Frost heave occurs if the structure is not founded below the depth of the frost penetration. When thaw occurs, the foundation may settle. Next one, vibration and shocks. The vibration and shock cause large settlements, especially in loose, cohesionless soils. Next one, mining subsidence. Mining. Subsidence of ground may occur due to the removal of minerals and other materials from mines below. Landslides. If landslides occur on unstable slopes, there may be a serious settlement of any type of problems. Creep. The settlement may occur due to the creep on clay slopes. If there are changes due to the construction of the new building near the existing foundation, the settlements may occur due to the increase in the stresses also. By taking suitable measurements to reduce the settlements due to all these type of cases. And these are the different types of settlements due to other loads. So we have so many types of settlements like settlements under loads, settlements due to loads analysis, and then other causes. Next topic is allowable settlement. If there is a large differential settlement between various parts of a structure, the damage may occur due to the additional movement developed. It is more difficult to predict a differential settlement than to predict the maximum settlement. The differential settlements are generally obtained indirectly from the maximum settlements. It has been found from the actual observations of various existing buildings that differential settlements can exceed 75% of the maximum settlements. In most cases, the differential settlement is less than the 50% of the maximum settlement. And then the differential settlements is automatically controlled if maximum settlements is controlled. The allowable maximum settlement depend upon the type of the soil, type of foundation, and the structural framing system. The maximum settlements ranging from 20 mm to 300 mm. It is generally permanent for various type of the structures. But theoretically, there is no damage is done to superstructure if the soil settles uniformly. However, the settlements exceeding 150 mm may cause trouble in utilities such as water pipelines, sewers, telephonic lines, and also in access from the streets. If sufficient precautions are taken while designing such type of utilities, then the maximum settlements of even up to 2 meters may be permitted in special type of the cases. As per codal provisions, that is IS 1904 in 1966 permits a maximum settlement of 40 mm for isolated foundation on sand and 65 mm for those on clay. and maximum as per this codal provision, which will give you permission like maximum settlements is 40 mm for sand and 65 mm for clay. Which type of the foundation it is, and it is isolated foundation. The followable settlement is higher for clays because of settlements on clays or soil is permit better strain adjustment, strain diagrams in the structural members. The maximum permissible settlement for raft foundations and on sand are 40 mm to 65 mm, and compared to the clay is 65 to 100 mm. The permissible settlement for raft are more than those isolated foundations because the raft form bridges over soft patches of the soil. The differential settlements are reduced. For RCC buildings can sustain angular distortion up to 1/150 without damage. However, to avoid the architectural damage, it should not exceed 1/300. The differential settlement of 20 mm between adjacent columns 6 meters centers. According to general practice, the maximum differential settlement is limited to 25 mm in sandy soils and 40 mm in clayey soils. As per codal provisions as IS 1904-1978 give you a safe values of maximum and differential settlements of different types of the foundations and different types of the buildings. The values for isolated footings and raft footings are also be given in the codal provisions. In practical conditions, settlements of the structure at a salient point such as corner, center and the lightest and heaviest column locations are determined by using the method so many methods. The differential settlements are determined from the settlements of the various points. Sometimes the differential settlements are taken as 25% of the maximum settlement without computing the settlements other than the point where maximum settlement is expected to occur. So this is about allowable settlement. So finally, plate load test. The settlement of the footing can be estimated from the settlement of the plate in the plate load test. So, the allowable bearing pressure can be determined by conducting the plate load test at the site itself. The conduct plate load test at the pit of the size 5B and into 5B, where BB is the size of the plate, and it is excavated to a depth equal to depth of foundation, which is equal to D of F. The size of the plate is usually 0.3 meters in the square shape. It is made of steel and 25 mm thickness. And circular plates are also used, but larger size plates 0 meter square are also used. In central hole of the size BP and BP is excavated in the pit. The depth of the central hole DP is obtained from the following relation, that is nothing but dP by BP is equal to dF by BF, where dP is equal to BP by BF into dF, where BF is equal to width of the pit and BP is equal to size of the plate. For conducting the plate load test, the plate is placed in the central hole. The plate is placed in the central hole and load is applied by means of a hydraulic jack, which we can see in the figure. Here it is. The reaction to the jack is provided by means of a reaction beam. Sometimes trusses are also used instead of the reaction beam to take up the reaction. Alternatively, the loaded platform, which is nothing but can be used as a provide reaction. The seating load of 7 kN per meter square is first applied, which is released after some time. The load is then applied to increase of about 20% of the estimated safe load or 1/10 of the ultimate load. The settlement is recorded after 1, 5, 10, 20, 40, 60 minutes and further after an interval of 1 hour. These hourly observations are continued for clay soils until the rate of settlements is less than the 0.2 mm per hour. The test is conducted until the failure or at least until the settlement of 25 mm has occurred as per IS 1888. 25 mm has been considered. The plate load test is considered. The ultimate load for plate QU is indicated by a break on log plot between the load insert QU and settlements. The ultimate bearing capacity of the proposed foundation is QUF can be obtained from the some relations, that is for clay soils and sandy soils is different. For clay soils it is QF is QUP. For sandy soils it is QF is QUP into BF by BP, where BF physical foundation width. And the plate load test can be used to determine the settlement for given intensity of loading, and the relation between the settlement of the plate and which is denoted by SP and that of the foundation which is denoted by SF for the same load intensity which are given. For clay soils, where SF is equal to SP into BF by BP, where SP is uptime and it is which is uptime from the load intensity settlement, that curve is for Q naught. For sandy soils, intensity SF is equal to SP into BF into BP plus 0.3 by BP into BF plus 0.3 whole square. And these the equation. In these equation, BF is the width of the foundation in which is denoted in the meters, and BP is the width of the plate, and this BP is also in the meters. So these are the different types of relations for clay soils and sandy soils in different conditions. And this is the plate load test diagram. So finally, we are going to discuss about limitations of the plate load test. And every test is having some of the limitations, and for the plate load test has the following limitations. First one is size effect. The results of the plate load test reflect the strength and settlement characteristics of the soil within the pressure bulb. As the pressure bulb depend upon the size of the loaded area, and it is much deeper for the actual foundation as compared to that of the plate. The plate load test does not truly represent the actual conditions if the soil is not homogeneous and isotropic to large depth. Scale effect. The ultimate bearing capacity of the saturated clays is independent of the size of the plate, but for cohesionless soils it increases with the size of the plate. To reduce the scale effect, it is desirable to repeat the plate load test with the plates of 2 or 3 different sizes and extrapolate the bearing capacity of the actual foundation and take average of the values which are obtained. And the third one is time effect. The plate load test is essentially a test of short duration. For clay soils, it does not give an ultimate settlement. The load settlement curve is not truly representative. And the fourth one is interpretation of the failure load. The failure load is not a well-defined aspect in the case of the general shear failure. An error of personal interpretation may be involved in other types of the failure also. The last but one is the reaction load. It is not practicable to provide a reaction of more than 250 kilonewtons. Hence, the test on a plate of size larger than 0.6 meters width is difficult. Last one is water table. The level of the water table affects the bearing capacity of the sandy soils. If the water table is above the level of the footing, it has to be lowered by pumping before the placing the table. The test should be permitted at the water table level if it is within about 1 meter below the footing. So these are the different limitations of the plate load test. So by conclusion of this plate load test, the fourth chapter, which we are continuation from first video, shallow foundations, is completed. Okay. Thank you.